Ciao a tutti, l'introduzione a questo video che sto per presentarvi è assolutamente improvvisata, per cui non fate caso a me al dietro, non fate caso a niente. Comunque, quello che vi sto per presentare è una intervista che è stata fatta da alcune blogger a Jennifer Niven, autrice del romanzo appena uscito per De Agostini, Raccontami di un giorno perfetto, un romanzo che tra l'altro sto leggendo. Questa intervista è stata fatta appunto all'autrice da parte di alcune blogger, quindi le domande che troverete sono domande fatte da blogger. Vi lascerò in alto il nome del blog, comunque giù in descrizione vi lascio tutti i link possibili e immaginabili, ci sarà una descrizione lunga chilometri. Comunque spero che questo video vi piaccia. Io mi sono praticamente imbucata a questo evento perché non sapevo che fosse solo su invito, però appunto avendo il blog mi hanno comunque lasciata entrare, grazie mille, per cui non ho fatto nessuna domanda, ma mi sono molto divertita, è stata davvero un'esperienza fantastica. Tra l'altro ci hanno dato anche il kit della stampa, il press kit, e la casa editrice ci ha anche regalato il libro che l'autrice è stata gentilissima a firmarci. Comunque non mi dilungo altro, spero che possiate godervi questa intervista. Presto usciranno sia il wrap up che il book haul del mese di marzo e tantissime novità che stanno arrivando sia sul canale sia nella mia vita, e quindi voglio un attimo condividerle con voi. Con questo vi saluto, ci vediamo al prossimo video in cui magari vi presenterò meglio il libro e l'autrice. Comunque questa intervista è davvero molto bella, vi consiglio di seguirla dall'inizio alla fine. So che il video è un po' lungo, ma ho cercato di racchiudere un'ora e mezza / 2 ore di evento in 25 minuti, insomma in pochissimo tempo. Spero comunque possiate godervela, spero possiate divertirvi a guardarla e spero che vi incuriosirà a leggere il romanzo, che sono a metà e mi sta piacendo molto, per cui ve lo consiglio. E niente, io vi mando un bacio grosso e ci vediamo al prossimo video.
Volevo
ciao!
sapere un po' di più su di te, no? So che hai cominciato a scrivere quando eri giovanissima, all'età di 10 anni, avevi già scritto una canzone di Natale, una favola di Natale, alcune canzoni, avevi già fatto dei libri illustrati. Volevo un po' sapere perché poi da adulta però ti sei avvicinata ai romanzi, perché insomma il romanzo poi è diventato il tuo amore, ecco.
My mother was an author as well, and so she taught me from a very young age to see the story in everything. And in fact, one of the first stories I wrote was when I moved to Indiana, where the book is set, and I was not happy about it, and I wrote a book called My Life in Indiana, or I Will Never Be Happy Again. So my mom was an author. There were benefits to that, but at the same time I saw how difficult and demanding it could be to be a writer, as you all know. And because of that, I was deterred from it for a while. So I kind of paused in my writing, and then I resumed it in college and after college, and that's when I decided I couldn't not be a writer.
Visto che parli di adolescenti, volevo sapere tu com'eri da adolescente.
Great question. I was actually very well behaved, except for the influence of my best friend, whom I met in 10th grade, and we're still best friends to this day. And always, if anyone can get me to get in trouble, it's him. But I was generally very good and very conscientious and a little mischievous. But I also was. I'm a pretty happy, sunny person by nature, but I do remember just being kind of angst-ridden in my Indiana high school years in particular, reading the Brontes and just, no one understands. And I loved boys, which hasn't changed.
Io volevo sapere come preferisce scrivere, tipo a casa, in tranquillità, o magari io vedo tanti autori che scrivono nei bar, in mezzo alle persone, così. Cosa preferisce?
I am one of the writers who cannot do that. I have to be in my office. My office is in our I have to be at my desk, or you know, on my laptop if I'm traveling. But I do need tranquility. I can't really even listen to music when I write, even though I'd love to be able to, because I get very distracted by the words. So I can only imagine if I were to write in a coffee shop, like so many writers do, I would just be focusing on everyone's conversation. I would not be able to do it.
Veniamo un po' nel vivo. Volevo sapere, ormai il tuo romanzo è un successo internazionale, ormai è dato. Cosa si prova ad aver raggiunto questo risultato, considerando che è il tuo primo romanzo per adolescenti, insomma il tuo primo young adult?
It's an overwhelming feeling in many, many ways. It's a very emotional feeling because the story comes from a real story in my life and a boy I knew who was much like Finch. So that, because it was such a personal story, and not only that, it was something that happened when I knew him, and during that time in my life, it's not something I talked about very much, knowing him. And so now I've not only talked about it, I've talked about it to everybody. and it was very scary to do that. At the same time, it's just been one of the best experiences of my life, getting to talk about it and getting to hear from readers who in some way have been affected by the story.
I romanzi che hai scritto in precedenza sono indirizzati a un pubblico adulto e come mai per questa storia hai deciso di cambiare target e rivolgerti ai più giovani? Credi che siano un pubblico che più deve essere sensibilizzato verso temi così delicati?
I absolutely think that these issues are important for young adults. I wrote the book as young adult because for a number of reasons. One, I've always wanted to write a young adult novel, and for some time, when I read young adult for pleasure. When I was thinking about writing this story, because it was so personal and it happened to me in my 20s, I thought I would need the distance from the story just to be able to write it more easily. And it just seemed like a natural setting to put it in high school. But that said, I also think that it's very important that these issues are talked about, because so many readers I hear from feel like they're alone, or they feel like they're not understood or listened to. And in some cases they feel like they don't have anyone to talk to. And so they're talking now, and I think that's an amazing thing.
Volevo sapere, penso di poter parlare a nome di tutte dicendo che ci siamo tutti innamorati di Finch, che è un personaggio bellissimo. E volevo sapere se avevi in mente un volto noto mentre scrivevi di lui, o se invece sei andato totalmente di fantasia.
I do usually cast my characters as I'm writing, because at least at the outset it helps to have faces, you know, as you're writing. But after a while, as you really get to know the characters and get into the characters, you don't need to rely on that quite so much. But that usually is one of my earlier steps when I'm thinking about characters. So when I cast Violet, I cast Elle Fanning from Maleficent. When I cast Finch, I always envisioned Nicholas Hoult from Warm Bodies, X-Men, Skins, and but at some point, as I was writing again, Finch kind of took over and left Nicholas Hoult behind. But that is who I pictured.
Con chi ti identifichi di più quindi in questo romanzo? Perché è vero che hai trasposto tanto della tua esperienza personale in Finch, ma la tua identificazione c'è in qualche personaggio in particolare?
I identify probably most with Violet, even though I feel I know Finch better because of the way I know. Violet and I are, like, in some ways we're very different than others, but she's much more popular than I was in high school. but you know, both the writing, of course, we have in common, and the fact that neither one of us really enjoyed growing up in Indiana, at least to count the days on the calendar until we could graduate. And then, of course, there's loving Finch. And also the loss that Violet experiences is something that I identify with greatly, as I've experienced a lot of loss. So I gave that to her with the loss of her sister.
The US Geography Project. Basically, Violet and Finch have to visit these wonders in Indiana, and so I was wondering if how you found out about those places and if you went there personally to see them.
I've been to some of the places that were in the book, and it was very hard to whittle down the list of places that they would go, because even though I thought there was nothing interesting in Indiana when I grew up there, it turns out there are a lot of weird and unusual places there to pick from. So I really had to pick and choose which ones they were going to go, see. And I picked some of the ones that I liked the best, and then also in terms of, I had a large map that I used to pinpoint all the places, and then I did try at first, because Violet didn't get in a car, I had to keep them very close to home, but someplace they could ride bikes to, and then branch out from there. But there's only one place in the book that is not real.
Che è Marta di Bostonia Library, che vorrebbe sapere cosa vorresti che i lettori comprendessero di più di questo libro, cioè qual è il messaggio che più di ogni altro vorresti arrivasse, perché è pieno di messaggi, quindi insomma ce ne sono diversi, però secondo te qual è quello che dovrebbe arrivare più diretto al cuore?
I think I want people to know that there are bright places, no matter what. And it's kind of twofold. And that none of us are alone. We're not alone. And those bright places exist. And sometimes they're right in front of us. And those places can be people or things or actual places. But if we look closely, we might be able to discover them.
Io vorrei sapere se leggendo il libro c'è qualcosa che vorresti cambiare, quindi un finale alternativo o anche una piccola parte, però qualcosa che vorresti che fosse andata diversamente.
The only thing I would change is there's one typo. I did not do, by the way, but sometimes typos will make their way in the printing, even if they never existed before. So I would change that, but it's already being changed. But honestly, after I turned the book in, I have not read it, since the last time I signed off on it. And part of that is it's just, you get to know it so well, you can practically recite it from memory. And another reason is you're terrified that you're going to see things that you regret or don't, want to go back and fix, and you can't do it. But so no, I haven't. Just
Il libro diventerà presto un film. E cosa ti aspetti da questa esperienza e in che modo sarai coinvolta?
I'm very excited about the film, and I want to mention that Elle Fanning, who I pictured as Violet, is playing Violet, which is an amazing experience, just in and of itself. The producers and the director and the writer would love to have me as involved as I would like to be. And so they've included me along the way in all these different steps we've been going through, which is remarkable in Hollywood. It does not. The director and I will be working with the writer as he writes the script, and I will be consulting on it to make sure that everything is in there that needs to be in there and nothing has changed, although I don't feel like I have to watch the producer, director, and screenwriter because they're all just as invested as I am, as is Elle, in keeping the story the same. Too many times Hollywood will change the story, but they have all promised me that they do not want to do that.
Io volevo sapere, abbiamo visto che esiste veramente il sito del Magazine e quindi volevo chiederti se l'hai creato prima o dopo aver scritto il libro e cosa ti ha spinto ad aprirlo.
Germ, when I was writing the novel and I came up with Germ on the page, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was an actual germ? And so we started Germ last January of 2014, because I wanted it to really be up and running for a while before the book came out. And it has grown so much. There were only 3 of us when we started, but now we have a staff of about 50. 50? Yes. They're all volunteer, and they're from all over the world, and we're read all over the world, and that's only growing and growing and growing since the books have been out. So it's part literary magazine and part lifestyle magazine, just as Violet describes. And what I really wanted was a place for like 14 to 25-year-olds to go that wasn't just fluff. You know, still fun things, but not just makeup and things like that, although we have a style section. So now I don't really even do that much with Germ, except check in now and then, because I have these amazing young editors who are running it, and it's their passion. And the very best thing is, before I used to say, let's do this, let's do this. The other, like a week or 2 ago, I said, what do you think about doing this? And they said, oh, no, we're not doing that. So they already, which makes me really happy, because now they really feel like it's theirs, and it's all of ours. But I just want it to be a place where people know they can go and they can actually read about issues that they're dealing with, but also have some lightness too, and then the literary component. And please submit to Germ, because we love to publish writers.
Raccontami un giorno perfetto ha avuto molti riscontri positivi dai lettori. Pensi che la lettura, come catarsi dei sentimenti, possa essere un buon modo per superare le difficoltà?
I absolutely do. I think one of the best things about books is they remind us that we're not alone. And I love the way they can impact readers, no matter what the subject matter is. And we can see ourselves on the pages of books, or see the people we love. And I think the very best thing about them, though, is they do remind us that we're not alone.
Se è vero che la lettura può essere catartica, possiamo dire che anche la scrittura lo può essere. In effetti ci sono sempre più persone che si avvicinano alla scrittura. Tu che adesso sei ormai una scrittrice di successo, quali consigli daresti agli aspiranti scrittori che vogliano distinguersi nella massa?
That's a great question. I always say, whatever you're writing, whether it's a book or an article or a poem, you write what you want to read. That's the reason I've written all of the books that I've written, because I wanted to read them. And they really can, no matter what you're going through in your life, they really can save you. They can be a wonderful outlet. Beyond that, I always recommend write. It sounds so silly to say that, but I know a lot of writers who don't write. They talk about writing, and then they're so fearful that it's not going to be perfect on the page, and there is no such thing. But that stops them from writing anything, and at least if you have something down, then you can work with it, and then read a lot, which I'm sure is no problem in this room. But definitely write the story you want to read, because the wonderful thing about each of us is that we could each take the same topic, but we would come about it from totally different angles, because only you and you and you can write the story that you can write. No one else can write that story, and I think that's really amazing.